Does your PS2 Slim scratch up your discs? What? Does your PS2 Slim scratch up the discs that you put in it? Why would it do that? I'm your cool Uncle Marissa, and that was a conversation I had in my comments on a PS2 video a while back. Someone asked me if my PS2 Slim scratches up my discs, and I couldn't really comprehend what they were talking about, because why would the machine that is meant to play discs scratch the discs that it is meant to play? And why the PS2 Slim specifically? And so I did some research into it, and it makes a lot more sense now. This is not a feature. This is an unintended consequence of the passage of time, something that we are unfortunately all subject to. You see, the laser mechanism in your PS2 Slim is attached to a ribbon cable, and that ribbon cable, it moves the laser, and it goes down under the laser and into a connector. The ribbon cable on almost all PS2 Slim models is held down with adhesive. And as the days go by, the seasons change, the adhesive grows weaker, much like your bones, and it starts to give out, and so the ribbon lifts, and when it lifts, then it comes into contact with the disc, which it's not meant to when the laser moves, therefore causing scratches on the disc. There seem to be a variety of different solutions for it. Some kind of address the problem through replacement of just get a new ribbon cable, glue that down. Some of them are like, you don't even have to disassemble it, just tape down the ribbon and wish for the best. And then there is what is called the Disk Saver. The PS2 Disk Saver was created by Floppidy Dingo on GitHub, and it is 2 3D printed parts which cover one of them, your laser assembly, it attaches to it, and the other one replaces the back of your disk drive where you've got that little house that the laser goes and, rests in. And lucky for me, I recently got a 3D printer. His name is Brian. Thank you so much, Brian, for 3D printing this part for me. And I figured we could also take a look at some very basic maintenance for your disk drive. If your disk drive is loud or creaky or any of that, it's very likely that you just need to lube her up. What kind of lube do you use? It's kind of like there's 2 options. So the lubricants that I own and have knowledge of kind of largely come from fixing audio equipment. And generally we use sewing machine oil for the insides of motors and stuff. We use silicone grease for plastic on metal or plastic on plastic. And in general in electronics and stuff, you can use white lithium grease for metal on metal, which is an option for some of the railings in the PS2 Slim, but I will be using silicone grease for everything because no harm, no foul. And it's also what I have. The brand I use is Super Lube. There's others out there, whatever is accessible to you. So you will need Super Lube, and you will need Q-tips or something else to apply it with in thin layers. For disassembling your PS2, you'll need some Phillips screwdrivers as well as a spudger. And for the Disk Saver, you can either get it 3D printed, you can buy it off of Floppidy Dingo's Etsy store. If you get the version with the screw printed, you must use an M1.6 by 4mm screw. Ask me how I know. And if you get the glue version, I like the Gorilla Glue that's like a gel, because it do be fast in drying time. But yeah, that's not a lot of stuff that you need that will help your PS2 Slim either run more smoothly, or if you're just really lucky and your PS2 Slim is still running smooth as day one, it is all stuff that is a good preventative measure as well. Despite all of these trials and tribulations we have with the maintenance and upkeep and even modernization of retro consoles, I imagine that for you, like for me, a big appeal of retro gaming is the offline nature of it all. There's no login credentials, no requirement to be online, there's no microtransactions. But unfortunately, that can't be said for the rest of our day-to-day lives. And to top that all off, data brokers can sell off your information to the lowest bidder. And it's completely legal for some reason. And that is where today's sponsor, Aura, comes in. Aura keeps you safe by identifying data brokers selling your information and automatically submitting opt-out requests on your behalf as soon as you create an account. And you can try Aura completely free for 14 days using my link aura.com/yourcooluncle, which is more than enough time for Aura to send opt-out requests to these brokers and let you know if any of your personal data has been exposed. Thank you so much to Aura for sponsoring this video. Now let's go and maintenance this PS2. Before you start following along, just make sure you don't have the PS2 Slim 7500 because that has a different laser. This is the laser you're looking for. And here is our aforementioned ribbon cable that apparently scratches discs as the adhesive gives out. The PS2 is pretty friendly to open up. These rubber bumpers cover Phillips screws, and the rubber bumpers can be removed with a spudger. They don't have any adhesive, and I think that was really cool of Sony to do on this. If yours has never been opened, you'll have a warranty void if removed sticker. And we're gonna go ahead and remove that because it's not legal, and also your warranty has already been voided by virtue of the fact that this is old as balls. It is low-key kind of cool though how it's like got this void pattern on it after you take it off. Anyway, opening up the Slim is a bit more challenging. You need to run a spudger throughout it to unclip everything, and then you should be able to take them apart. And we are greeted with the disk assembly. This is the first time opening it up, so I'm gonna clean it because that's a dead cockroach. Yay! I feel like someone in the comments is gonna be like, don't take a hand vac to your PS2 Slim. But I was not gonna touch this cockroach with my bare hands. And also, that hand vac has terrible suction. But I'm just going to clean parts of it with isopropyl alcohol because, gross. For good measure, I'm going to remove my dead clock battery. I wish these were easier to replace. Pull out this tiny ribbon cable on the top right. And then I am removing this ribbon cable that doesn't need to be removed actually, because we're going to remove it from the disk side. The white one with the blue end does need to be removed. This one's kind of a tough one. You need to kind of wiggle it out. I'm using a spudger. You could even use your screwdriver, but it just needs to be pulled out. And I'm just gonna move the laser so I can clean the railings so that any grease or oil that's been there prior, I can clean that off before applying new grease. Twisting the railing is the correct way to move the laser. You probably shouldn't move it with your hand. We have 4 screws over the disk drive assembly that we can unscrew. Notice the tension when you unscrew them. They're seated quite gently, so when you put them back, don't tighten them too much. Once you lift it, do lift it gently because that rivet cable is attached, so you don't want to tear it. Then just push the laser up, and then you can flip the flap up on the ribbon cable connector and remove the ribbon, and you're free. So what we're going to do here is we're going to install first that bigger part, which the black plastic shield needs to be removed in order to do, because it's just replacing it. And you need a tiny Phillips screwdriver for this one. And I didn't do this from the get-go, but I recommend putting the screw into the 3D printed part to create threads so that you can install it with more ease. Because I wasn't able to get the screw in and I realized, well, it's not threaded. Once this is installed, we can move on to the little guard, which the entire point of this is to accommodate the guard. I got the version that screws in, and therefore you need to remove a screw from below, right where that hole is, and insert a different screw in. Now, I had a lot of trouble with my PS2 once it was reassembled, and I realized it's because I didn't use exactly the screw that was required. I know that's silly, but I thought, what's the worst that could happen? But essentially, because it was a little taller and it wasn't sinking in, it was catching onto the top shell, and the PS2 was panicking and not allowing the laser to move. So I'm going to use glue instead. You can go ahead and reassemble the disk drive assembly, especially the ribbon cables if you don't want to put the screws in yet, because we don't need to access the back side any longer. Here you can actually get a glance at that screw and the head, and how you can now imagine how it was catching onto the top of the shell without me even noticing. By the way, to test the assembly, there is a switch at the top left of the assembly and the switch where it clicks at the front near the power button when you close the lid. All you need to do is hold those two switches and you can test the laser and disk drive like that without having to reassemble. All right, we've got this Gorilla Glue Super Glue Gel. I really like this because it dries really quickly, and just put a little bit on the 3D printed part that flags out. You don't want to use too much because you don't want it to accidentally leak onto the ribbon cable or onto the railing or the lens. Be very careful. And then I'm holding it down with the spudger because I don't want to get it on my fingers. And hold it down for however long the instructions say. I skipped time so you don't have to watch all that. And then just check if it is secured, check if it goes underneath the guard properly, and it does. You can use some isopropyl alcohol to clean up if there's any drip, otherwise we're ready to lube up the railing. Using a Q-tip, we can just put nice thin layers, and we will move the laser assembly as needed to reveal different areas. And once we get to the rod on the right hand, that is kind of like, it's all twisted, we can twist it with our finger to make sure that we've got the grease all over. Through all of this, take care not to touch your lens. And before you reassemble everything, you can just clean your lens with a clean Q-tip. Reassembly is as much of a breeze as disassembly. I do also like to quickly test it with the top half on before screwing it together as well, because, for example, in my situation, it was working without the top, but once the top was on, it was catching, and I would have been a lot more annoyed if I'd completely reassembled it only to discover that. So yeah, it's kind of crazy that the screw like has to be specific. Isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy that the part that you're supposed to use needs to be the part that you're supposed to use, and you can't just substitute a different part for it? But I'm quite happy with how it turned out once I used the glue. And I also, you know, I really appreciate that it's pink. I asked Brian, like, please print it for me in pink, because it's a little spark of joy in this black console, you know, like it's a sleek, cool, and then it's like pink. I also have a white Japanese model. I think I will try and do this with that one too. I have like a fear of my Japanese model like dying or something after my last one was stolen by a viewer. I'm quite happy with this, and I'm quite happy that it's much quieter now with everything lubed up. So a huge thank you to Floppidy Dingo for creating this disk saver. It's such a small thing, and it makes such a big difference in the long run for the longevity of our disk-based games. Thank you to Brian for printing this for me. And a giant thank you to Aura for sponsoring this video. Again, you can click on the link in the description for a 14-day free trial. Thank you as always to my Ko-fi supporters and members. With a membership, you can get exclusive content like blog posts or monthly game reviews for $2 a month. I hope this video was helpful. Let me know if you've had experience with your PS2 scratching up your discs, and if you've tried any other solutions to it, or like me, are you now frightened, like I was upon reading those comments on my other video, that your PS2 is going to start scratching up your discs? Because yeah, I guess there's a solution now, preemptively. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget that you are always welcome at Cool Uncle's house. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.